Greetings again, everybody. Welcome back to Dark Souls 2. Back in Drangleic Castle because, well, aside from that king's door to our left out of that room, there's something else that we have not explored yet. You might remember it, I kind of said it already. In this room there's plenty of doors, and the one in the back to the left is one that leads us to a different area, kind of. And yeah, still have to deal with those guys. As I said, for some reason they do respawn a new game, but not a new game plus, at least not for me. Which is weird, but we don't need to see this, we know how this works. Ah, well. So anyway, about that door. This is the... well, it doesn't necessarily lead to the final area before we go to the final boss. But it leads us to something that will help us access that final area before we go to the final boss. It's completely optional, by the way. We could technically already go and just, you know, end the game right now if we felt like it. But hey, there's some content and I want to show it. And yeah, if you kill one of those guys close to those golems, they activate. And they just hold up a torch, that's all. The other one does this as well, but it's not really something that you need to do by any means. And of course there is yet another sentinel in there. But you know what, I really don't care. I'm just gonna go and fuck off. This set of armor, the Faram set, is the set that is featured in promotional materials for the game, by the way. I don't quite like the way it looks, which is why I haven't used it yet. And maybe at some point, who knows, I'll wear parts of it. Well, the helm fits with a lot of stuff, I guess, but the body armor kind of looks meh, in my opinion. And we haven't seen this guy in a while.
We meet again, young undead. You have the look of a true seeker. I am Dark Diver Grandal, seeker of dark, giver of dark. If you seek true dark, I will grant it to you, as much as you desire. Well then, is dark what you wish for? There you are. You are now a pilgrim of dark. The dark chasm beckons you. Those drawn to the dark are destined to seek it. Finally, you are here, young undead. Now, open the depths of darkness. Young undead, the dark awaits you.
You might remember those weird platforms in the other spots we found that guy in. Well, we can now access those, but every time we do we need to use an effigy. First time is free though. You can just enter it now and buy some hexes from him.
The embrace of the dark is gentle. Let it absorb your sorrows forever. The embrace. May the dark shine your way.
You know, I'd call him crazy, but this black purplish mass he calls the dark does indeed act as a light source and could shine our way. But now, without any further ado, let's just hop right in. Yes, the Dark Chasm of old might remind people who've played the first game's DLC of the Chasm of the Abyss, which looked very similar but was a little darker maybe. Don't get me wrong, this is still pretty dark. But it's also kind of a bad area in my opinion. It mostly features those NPC style enemies we can see right ahead there, wearing full Havel's gear, and this is kind of a bad spot to fight them in. If you go further in, more guys will come out and you'll have to deal with several. So you'll have to fight them here if you want to fight him one-on-one, which is a bad spot because you can't as easily move around him. You can of course, but you'll have to be very careful. And it's best to take him out very quickly, just to make sure that he doesn't kill you, like he did with me, because you saw me pick up my bloodstain. But yeah, this is actually an area that you can only access via that covenant we just entered. And it's kind of cool. I give them an A for effort for actually, you know, implementing areas you can only access if you join a covenant. Which makes this probably the, well, the offline covenant. Not the only one that's mostly offline, but this is actually the one that adds new gameplay challenges. Aside from the Champions Covenant, which is kind of shit. But so is this one. Anyway though, we need to complete this area, or not necessarily this area, to rank up our covenant. We need to do something particular in this area though to actually do that. We get our first covenant level up the first time. We do something we shall do very shortly. And the second level will be reached after we do it 3 times. And the third and final level will be reached once we do something else, something extra, which we'll also do of course. And those wizard guys mostly shoot magic, obviously, because they're wizards. It's probably a better strategy to just run in close instead of fighting them from a range. But in this case, I did not remember if there's any other guys waiting for me there, so I was playing it safe. But yeah, there is nothing else. You could have just run there. I could have, I mean. Yeah, it's been a while since I played this area. I rarely ever go through those dark chasms of old because I don't like them. But up ahead, here's our objective. This thing is something that's supposed to be lit on fire. It's reminiscent of the Lord Vessel, kind of, but it's probably not the Lord Vessel. Speaking of the Lord Vessel, in case you don't remember, it is one of the big quest items from the first game. We went to Analondo to grab it, and later we put the souls of the lords into it to, well, I don't know, to unlock the final area, I guess. In this game, the Lord Vessel is not really present, or is it? It kind of is. We can see the Lord Vessel, or something that looks like shards of the Lord Vessel, in the basement of the mansion of Majula. Just kind of shattered on the ground. Don't think there's any significance to it in this game though. Anyway, we've now cleared the chasm, the first one at least, and well, to leave it we need to obviously just, you know, jump.
Young undead, the dark beset upon you runs deeper than I had imagined. Let us see just how much dark you can endure. You have seen dark that has existed from times long past. What once was a great void of darkness became but fragments. But slowly, the scattered fragments grew, absorbing all things. It is we who will be pilgrims to these sacred sites.
So he says that the dark has been scattered into fragments. Keep that in mind for now. It's more relevant than you might initially assume. It's also relevant in the main game, but more so in the DLC probably. But it's more relevant here, of course, than you'd think as well. Now let's head on to the next chasm. This first one, by the way, in my opinion, is the hardest one. Although it's also much shorter than this next one. At least this next one feels longer, but all of them are pretty short. It might just be that this next one has more enemies in it. Yeah, that's probably it.
Finally, you are here, young undead. Now, open the depths of darkness. Young undead, the dark awaits you. The mouth to the dark chasm is not normally. Young undead, may the dark shine your way. May the...
Alright, let's go into the dark again. The dark is a pretty big part of Souls lore. The game stresses that wherever there's light, there needs to be dark, which of course makes sense because there's probably gonna be a shadow cast somewhere if you have a flame somewhere. In this case, that flame is the first flame, and it's so incredibly strong and is what gave the gods their power, and probably a couple other things as well, that the shadow it cast must have been incredibly dark. And that shadow is most likely the Abyss. The Abyss is... well, we don't know if it has a physical location or not. But this is probably the Abyss, the part we're in right now. After all, there was also this area in the first game called the Chasm of the Abyss, which was also the Abyss. Then again, there was also the area called just the Abyss, which, well, was the Abyss. So the Abyss, I would assume, is not really a place. It's more of a thing that kind of exists, not necessarily in a particular spot, but it's, well, more abstract, so to speak. But the thing is that the Abyss, or rather Dark itself, kind of has a bad influence on, well, deities as well as humans. While the Dark is kind of the source of human life. When there's too much dark in one person, that person kind of goes mad with humanity. One such example would be Manus, Father of the Abyss, which is the final boss of the DLC of the first game. And he is kind of introduced as a primeval human. And there's a character called Kath, which many people will probably miss because, well, he's easily missable. That refers to a progenitor of man, which is most likely Manus. And Manus, when we see him, is humanoid, but not human. At least not by my definition of human. Anyway though, the Abyss has not only a weird effect on humans, but also on deities. We see this firsthand when we meet Artorias of the Abyss, which is also what the DLC of the first game is named. And Artorias is kind of crazy. He's super powered, but he's also very hostile, even though he's supposed to be on our side. Then again, other characters that may or may not be on our side have also attacked us, so there's that. But yeah, Artorias kind of attacked us. He even had a broken arm and he still was crazy. I would have hated to fight him with both arms intact. It was one of the hardest fights of the game, really. Anyway, the entire gimmick of the first game's DLC is to show us what happens to an area that's affected by the Abyss. And since that DLC is set in the past, we can also see how that area looks several years later. Several hundred, several thousand, we don't even know, but yeah, it's a forest. It looks pretty peaceful, but it also is covered in eternal night. It's never day there. At least according to some of the lore. But yeah, that's, I think, about enough of a lesson on darkness right now. I might go into it a little bit again at a later point in time, though. If I have to. For now, we basically have already lit up this place. By now, I think you will understand what I mean when I say that this area feels bigger than the first one. It's actually still pretty tiny spatially, but there's just way more enemies here, and they're not very fun to fight. Sadly, this is true for all of the Chasm of old areas, and it's also the reason I basically never play through them. I don't really like fighting NPC type enemies. While they are not really hard, they feel very tough to me. The thing is that you can exploit their AI fairly easily, but then again, they're also kind of random and they don't go by exactly the same rules as you. I could swear, for instance, that they have more stamina and they most definitely have more health than you would have. I mean, you could feasibly have that much health, of course, but it's still something that's very unlikely to ever happen. At least not if you want to dual wield those things and also wear that super heavy armor without having a fat roll. Though I do think that guy had a fat roll, I'm just not 100% sure. And yes, by the way, if you need bonfire ascetics, you can get them here. The enemies here have a chance of dropping bonfire ascetics. It's, by the way, also possible to be invaded by other players here, but I'm not really sure if that nets you a special reward or if it's just, you know, invasion. It's basically a normal red phantom invasion, only the invader spawns as one of those phantoms. As far as I know anyway. I never really did it and it also never happened to me. But, whoa, this is it for the second chasm. I'm glad it is over, because as I will let you know over and over, I am not too fond of it. But now it's time to go to the final chasm, which is also the easiest in my opinion. And I tend to save this one for last for a reason. Because, well, let's just spoil it right away. After the final chasm, there is a boss fight. Now, if you did this chasm first and the other ones after that, you can still just go back and do it here. Because all you need to do is drop into the hole in the chasm you want to fight the boss in after you lit all 3 of the fires. And as I said, we need to actually light all 3 fires to reach level 2. So we didn't really get any reward this time around. But yeah, now the final chasm, once more into the dark. It is actually a pretty good idea to bring fire to these areas, because most enemies here are, if they're not weak against fire, they're at least not resistant to it. But I'm pretty sure that those 3 wizard guys are actually weak to fire. A flame weapon, for instance, is probably a pretty good idea. And as you might have noticed, I have actually infused my S-Tug with fire. Mostly because bringing a dark infused weapon to a place which entire gimmick is being dark is probably not such a tremendously clever idea. But it probably would have worked out. I've kind of done it before. Not in the chasms, but I did beat dark resistant enemies with dark weapons and spells because I had nothing else before. I don't recommend it, of course. But even if you had somehow found the weakness that kills everything here really quick, it doesn't matter because those guys really take a lot of hits. And you probably want to pull them out one by one, which is what I'm doing because fighting two of those at the same time is probably not such a splendid idea. Thankfully there's only two of those here, and that final guy way back there is just one of those wizard guys which we can just murder. Once we lit this thing up, of course. And with that we have technically reached level 2 of the Covenant. If we went back to Grandal right now, we'd get the reward for it. If there is one. And he hit me even after death. Kind of a dick move if you ask me. Ah yes, more elevators. Let me tell you, once you ride this elevator back down, you should probably activate it again so it goes back up. Should you need a second try, it will be up and you won't have to wait for it again. Which is probably something pretty useful. Something that I should have done, perhaps. And this is the same guy we've also fought upstairs, but again, I guess. And since we outrange him or her, it's not really much of a problem. In general, NPC phantoms are a joke if you outrange them, and just merely annoying if you don't. But yeah, time to actually go down. Alright, this guy's design is actually based on the design of Seath from one of the King's Field games. I don't know which one though, I've never played them. But that Seath has practically nothing to do with Seath the Scaleless from Dark Souls. It's a completely different character from a different series, of course. This guy, however, the Darklurker, is a boss that I love and hate. On one hand, I think he's kind of cleverly designed, although right now you can tell that he's really easy. The only reason I got hit by that, for instance, was because I rolled into a wall. Other than that, he has a couple attacks that are really telegraphed ahead of time and easily dodged. The best one is probably this one because it allows you to just get in a couple hits. And by the way, this guy is really weak to fire. If you have fire, then just use it and have fun. And yeah, the best way to dodge this attack is to just run. But it's not something that happens all the time. And sometimes it just kind of, you know, hits you regardless. And this laser attack, by the way, is another really good opportunity to get in a couple hits if you have ranged attacks. Just get under him and then use your arrows or bolts or magic. And just, you know, go to town with him. Our fire Aztok though does disappointingly low damage, kind of. Which is kind of interesting because we will see just how fire tears through him a little bit later. And this orange orb is also easily dodged, just run. The dark orb Peaches sometimes throws up is way harder to dodge. And yes, look at that, that's fire. It does tons of damage to him. But now we have to deal with two Darklurkers at the same time, because he splits himself up, obviously. So we had the first half of the fight time enough to learn his attacks and how to dodge them. So now we have to deal with two of them. And that's the only reason I think this is a well-designed boss that just killed me. But hey, we have technically reached level 2, so let's go on and reap our rewards for that at least.
I knew there is more dark within you than even you know. Dark is the mother of all. All things were born from it.
Oh great, a spell that we could have bought, which isn't that great. It does more damage than Resonant Soul, but needs way more souls and has way too few casts to be worth it. Plus, you've seen me use it already. Anyway, back to the Darklurker. Let's do it again, and this time just burn him to the ground. Brought plenty of pyromancy this time, which should make really short work of him. If you have trouble with this fight, it's probably worth it to just go and power up your pyromancy flame if you haven't already, and use pyromancy. I mean, just check out combustion. It will do a lot of damage. There. Our puny pokes just don't even come close. It's almost kind of embarrassing. But yes, the fight is very much the same, only now we have the power. It is a common strategy to actually use Firestorm, Fire Tempest or Chaos Storm and wait until he splits up. And when he splits up, you immediately cast that. If you get lucky, you will kill him immediately. If you don't, you will severely damage them. If you're absolutely out of luck, every single fire pillar will miss. But that's kind of rare, really. One of the more annoying things you can do, to me at least, is to teleport. And do that and not warn me beforehand. Sometimes, by the way, he just does not split up. I've had runs where he just was one Darklurker the entire time. And that was really easy, of course, because one Darklurker is just kind of a joke. He's there to teach you how to fight him. And that's his sole purpose. And done. Now, this is an optional boss I can kind of get behind of, as opposed to, what's it called? The Ancient Dragon, yeah. I still hate that guy. But now we have reached level 3 of the Covenant, and hopefully the reward will be super swell. And the abyss is eternally open now, by the way.
Young undead, you've discovered the truest dark within you. A deep, deep dark it is. The dark that we must all face. We need the abyss more now than ever. I bequeath these to you. Take them on your pilgrimage. May the dark shine your way.
Okay, that was quite a bit. So, let's go on and check out what we can make of the boss soul. From the Darklurker soul we get Life Drain Patch. We've already seen Life Drain Patch, but here it is again. It will create a mass of darkness wherever we cast it, and whoever touches it gets damaged. This includes ourselves and allies. So it's the best not to get close to it. It can do quite a number of damage though. If you use it right, you can easily drain the health of, well, large groups of enemies, or even kill them if they're low enough health. But overall, most enemies tend to not die from it. At least not completely. But yeah, that's it for today. Hope to see you again next time.